If you're a British Columbia parent trying to figure out whether registered homeschooling or online learning is the right fit for your family, this episode is for you. We're talking about what happened at the first ever BCHEC conference. In this episode, the conversations that reminded me why I do this work, why the challenges you're feeling are not unique to you, what BC law actually says about registered homeschooling, and a full circle moment with my daughter that I didn't see coming. Stay with me, there's something in here for wherever you are in this journey. Welcome to the Confident Homeschool Mom podcast. I'm Teresa Wiedrich, the certified life coach and graduated homeschool mom, and author of the book Homeschool Mama Self-Care, Nurturing the Nurturer. This is the podcast for the mom who looks capable on the outside, but feels scattered and unsure on the inside. I spend my days being the support, the clarifier, and the cheerleader for the woman behind the homeschool family. Because my work focuses inward on the woman behind the homeschool. Most homeschool overwhelm has nothing to do with curriculum. It has everything to do with the pressure, the perfectionistic tendencies, and the old stories we carry inside. I believe you are the most important curriculum in your homeschool, and that you deserve a seat at the homeschool table too. Welcome to the podcast, and let's get into today's episode. If you've decided to homeschool in British Columbia, you've already made the hard decision, but there is a second decision waiting right behind it, and it confuses a lot of families. Registered homeschooling versus online learning in BC. Which is right for your family? After 2 decades of homeschooling in British Columbia and 6 years of coaching families through this exact moment, here's what I know. This decision isn't about finding the right school or the right system. It's about who you are as a family. It's about the values you're being called toward in this season of your life, the child standing right in front of you, and how much ownership you're ready to take in their education. I have no skin in the game when it comes to your choice. I'm not here to talk you into a particular path. My only intention is to help you find your clarity, because you already know your family better than anyone. Sometimes you need the right conversation to hear what you already know. So please read the blog post associated with this episode of the Confident Homeschool Mom podcast. I have a lot more to share there. And also know that once or twice a month, I offer you an opportunity to clarify your choice in my BC Clarity session. More on that at the end of this episode, or you can read the details in the show notes. So I had a delightful weekend with a few hundred British Columbian homeschool moms at the BC Home Educators Conference. My ambivert soul was absolutely tapped by Friday evening when I returned to the hotel. But I still spent an hour and a half practicing my breakout session for the morning after. Then went right back the following morning to introduce myself to everyone at the conference and hear their stories. Once again, I am reminded how remarkably capable homeschool moms are. Not only was this the first BCHEC Home Education Conference, there were 250 attendees and 100 children, but every detail was considered. I am so grateful for all their efforts. Everyone involved was giving their all to create a community and learning opportunity for new and established homeschool moms, so they could either find their footing or create a foundation for flourishing. It was just beautiful to participate in. I had so many conversations. Here's some of the topics. I had conversations with moms who had yet to commit to homeschooling. They were trying to get their partner on board or their family willing enough to not be a resistance in their initial first-year efforts. I had conversations with 2 homeschool moms about their 4- and 5-year-olds, kids they hadn't even started homeschooling yet, and the conversation was centered on whether their kids could do high school at home or if they'd be hindered and not able to choose their preferred post-secondary schools. P.S. One of the things I always ask the mom new to all this, are you moving towards something or away from something? Both are valid starting points when we begin homeschooling, but knowing which one you are helps you stay grounded when homeschooling gets challenging. Families who are running toward freedom and connection and a different pace of life tend to settle into homeschooling more naturally. Families who are primarily moving away from a bad school situation sometimes find that the relief wears off and the uncertainty rushes in, and they have to recreate their new reason for doing this within the first year or two. Both discover that this lovely homeschool lifestyle has its challenges. It can get hard. That's not a warning, it's just the truth of any meaningful thing that we choose to do. Certainly this homeschool mom life. I also had conversations with moms about their coaching businesses. They wanted to know how I came into this homeschool life coach role and why I chose to work with this particular woman, the one who is capable on the outside but scattered on the inside, or the one who has days of overwhelmed stress and frustration but is still determined to white-knuckle her way through because she sees the value of this lifestyle. The mom who shows up every day, day in, day out, every morning, she shows up in hope again, despite feeling like, at times, she's overwhelmed, she's not doing her best job, or even that she feels like she's evaporating, losing her sense of self. I had numerous conversations with moms challenged by a relationship with a daughter or son, and I always pointed them toward the meaningful discussion on how the relationship with our own mothers is affecting how we're relating to each of our homeschool kids. That's a big one, right? I had conversations with homeschool moms curious about my book. It was sitting in a tidy green-blue stack on the corner of my vendor table. That book was a compilation, a flyover of all the important discussion points I'd written about for years, that I'd informally coached moms on for years. P.S. You can still access that book online via christianbooks.com and also on Amazon. Since I've written so much on all those topics, also in journaling workbooks or online courses, it is my intention to develop and rewrite that book in the coming months, all based on the breakout session that I had the privilege of sharing this past weekend. Since I began coaching, I've had so many conversations with hundreds of women who homeschool differently, who have different homeschool kids, who live in different parts of the world, who think about the world differently. And there are 7 fundamental common denominators amongst these women. Those 7 common denominators were the foundation to the breakout session that I shared this past weekend. We really do experience these common things, no matter where we're at or how we're choosing to live this life. You may be homesteading. You may be living in the suburbs or downtown, or living in San Francisco, Singapore City, Toronto, Sydney, Berlin, or Amsterdam. You may be fleeing a war-torn country with your kids. You may be returning from a military duty and wanting to reconnect with your kids and your partner. You may be a classical conversations or homeschool co-op leader. You may be bringing your kids to the mosque every Wednesday and kneeling down in prayer 5 times a day, or attending weekly Bible studies and home church. You may be struggling as a grandma who's homeschooling her grandkid because it's the best option. You may be a mom of twins, and 3 other kids too. You may be homeschooling a singleton on the spectrum. Or you may be questioning your marriage and torn between feeling like you're going to break up your perfect homeschool family. You may be grieving over the loss of a child who passed away. You may be grieving the loss of a grandparent or a mother who overdosed. Or maybe you're struggling with addiction yourself. You may be a past teacher, or you may never have imagined you would educate anyone. You may be a second-generation homeschool mom. Or you may be so new to this homeschool thing that you don't know what that is. You may be the oldest homeschool mom in the group, or the youngest. And still, you are likely to identify with the 7 common denominators of the homeschool mom experience. If you happen to catch my breakout session at the BCHEC conference this past weekend, send me a message. I would love to hear what resonated most. For those who are curious what those 7 common denominators are, I intend to write and share them in an upcoming book offering. I'll keep you posted. And for those that didn't, know that I'll be bringing that to you sometime really soon. On our 8-hour drive to the Lower Mainland, the Vancouver, BC area, this past Thursday, I was grateful to have a captive audience with my daughter and very soon-to-be son-in-law. My daughter, who is both my virtual assistant and my Pinterest creator and manager, shared that I just have too much to share in the confines of an hour. So true. So true. I could talk for days, maybe weeks, on the homeschool mom life. I jest-ish, because if you begin listening to this podcast from episode 1 to today's podcast episode number 366, it would quite literally be 8 months of podcast listening in a row. And that's only on my recorded podcast. My anecdotal research, as I've been coaching women who home educate, has both informed me of the challenge of this homeschool life, but it is also something I wish I knew when I was in the most harried seasons of my own homeschool mom life. Because then I would know I am so definitely not alone in these challenges. There is nothing new under the sun for the homeschool mom experience. Yeah, there are many different life scenarios, but there is nothing new. Because this episode is specifically for the British Columbia homeschool mom, or the one that's interested in homeschooling in BC, and it's connected to a blog post on my website here, I want to speak to a few things that matter if you live in our beautiful province. I was a registered homeschooler in BC. What that means in a nutshell is this. According to Section 12 and 13 of the BC School Act, we have full freedom to create an academic program for our children. There is more to that statement than what I just shared, and it really is worth your while to read it. It's possibly the only piece of legislation I've routinely encouraged BC homeschool moms to read, because when you are familiar with it, you will be confident. And when someone asks, is it legal to homeschool in BC, you'll be able to say yes and reference the School Act. Also, you might be educating the local brick and mortar school if you're bringing your letter of intent to a school that isn't familiar with registered homeschooling at all. P.S. There are many still. It's also important for you to know if you are bringing your kids home and enrolling them in an online school in BC, the province of BC does not acknowledge you as a homeschooler. You are acknowledged as an online learner, an extension of the school system here. Certainly, many identify as homeschoolers when they are indeed at home with their kids, learning together. Perhaps this discussion is not relevant to you, perhaps it is. I know that for the sake of my coaching work, it is not relevant when I'm addressing most of the challenges of the homeschool mom life. But I do believe it matters for maintaining registered homeschool options in BC. And I believe there is always value to maintain the freedom to choose an academic program for our kids. When I was at the BCHEC conference this past weekend, I had the privilege of chatting and hugging and listening again with Bonnie Landry. Bonnie is a seasoned home educator to her 7 grown kids. She's also the host of Making Joy Normal podcast. One of the conference organizers asked how Bonnie and I first met. I actually remember attending one of her breakout sessions at the HCOS conference in Kelowna back in the day. And I fell in love. This woman, she can teach. She's really clear, very practical, and is useful no matter how you homeschool. It was especially a delight for me to listen to the Homeschool High School panel that she was on this weekend. She both supported her kids' agency, knew how to bring life to so many subjects, and framed the entire homeschool mom with clarity. I will certainly be referencing her one quote in the near future, I'm confident. Because here's what she said. I don't have too big of a house for me to keep clean all the time. I just don't have enough staff. Touche and amen, said most homeschool moms. You know, it was Bonnie that I emailed first in January 2020 and shared that I had an idea to begin coaching inside the homeschool mom space. This was while I was the president of the BCHEC. I was messaging her in between meetings with the BC's Ministry of Education. We were invited there to help clarify the ministry's ideas around home education in our province. I was surprised to hear this weekend that one of the present members found my discussion on registered homeschooling powerful at the time, and I didn't even know it had been recorded. But I remember from those meetings with the ministry was this: those who care about kids' education see that an individualized education wrapped in a healthy relationship within the family is a powerful tool for meaningful life and healthy society. For the record, when I was discussing that, I had real resonance with the people listening. I heard resounding agreement from the school administrators. Those administrators felt frustrated that their intentions towards the kids were being blocked within the system too, because many of them care about the kids too. And though political advocacy for education will never be quelled in my heart, I love it, but my fierce passion is that I enable and equip home educating parents to home educate and do it fearlessly or confidently. In British Columbia or anywhere in the world, on this podcast and YouTube and written word in my website offerings or books or journals or courses, and most meaningfully, in one-on-one coaching and workshops. Because I know that you can do this. You can do this. You can absolutely do this. You may remember a few episodes back that my son got a 3D printer, which I kept calling a laser printer. He has been learning how to create various things that could be useful around the home. Naturally, I see an entrepreneurial opportunity. If you can solve a problem, you can build a business. He was not entirely convinced when I shared that with him, though he and his sisters know very well my deep belief in the entrepreneurial mindset, and I know I've lit a fire under one of them for sure now. So my son made me a fidget toy with said 3D printer, which I found rather addictive as I was doing my work. So I suggested he make 10 so I could bring them to the BCHEC conference. I can imagine how useful they'd be for kids challenged to focus on prescribed learning moments. Even if no one purchased the toy, the kids could play with them as I was chatting with their moms at my table. Well, it turns out every single one of them was sold. Then he texted me when I told him they're all gone. He said, "So what's my cut?" I said, "I'm your mom. You can have it all." Now, I think he's inspired. You might just see him at the BCHEC conference next year with his own table. Certainly, the dozen or so women I've helped create and craft businesses know that I believe homeschool moms are exceptionally capable of building a business that aligns with who they are and what they care about. The homeschool mom life practically entails quintessential project management and planning. And I saw that ever so clearly in the efforts behind the BCHEC conference this past weekend. Every detail was considered. I was delighted myself when having a conversation with a different homeschool mom, a graduated homeschool mom. Her kids are well into adulthood now, because she shared what I already thought about myself after my kids are all grown and launched. FYI, that would be in 1 month from now. So this graduated homeschool mom said she's sticking around because she finds this community so remarkable. Amen to that. And she wants to offer her wisdom and guidance. Beautiful. When she launched into this, what feels like you're untethered, that season of the homeschool mom life, when the kids are all grown and launched, she recognized she could absolutely not work for someone else. Amen to that. She was far too independent, too comfortable doing her own thing. Yeah, girl, I get you. Interestingly, this dear mom that I imagine getting to know quite well in the future pitched an idea for a coaching program specific to graduated homeschool moms. And would I be interested in participating? You all know my answer. I sure would be. It was also intriguing and memorable for me, so memorable that I want to remember it here with you, that I was having a conversation with my daughter as we were driving. By the way, I did very little driving on this weekend, and we solidly drove for 16 to 20 hours altogether. So I was sitting alongside her in the passenger seat because she's now a grown-up daughter. And I shared that I feel a little untethered at this stage of my life. For me to move into this new stage of womanhood when no kiddo is living at home, I can see that life opens widely when our kids are grown. Kind of like a backcountry road where only your all-wheel Subaru could travel, to moving toward Highway 401 between Toronto and Montreal. I don't really know where I'm going to go with all of that expansive possibility into the untethered unknown. All the work I do here with you, encouraging you, being in one-on-one coaching conversations with you, I can do that from anywhere in the world. And I don't want to leave this beautiful homestead where I first found my roots, but I'm also no longer required to stay anywhere either. I'm sure that this portion of this episode seems highly unrelatable to you, as you may be so tethered that you don't sleep without a child, or even pee without a child. Or perhaps you're just tethered to the minivan. It is so not cliche when I repeat here, the days are long, oh yes, but the years are short, and you too will see life from my untethered vantage point. Someday, sooner than you realize. So back to the car and my chat with my daughter. So I'm telling her I feel untethered. And do you know what she said to me? She said, "Mom, do you know how many times I have heard you tell homeschool high school parents or students who are just about to graduate that they don't have to figure out what they have to do for the rest of their lives? They only need to know their next steps." And then she put her hand on my shoulder as I quietly shed a few tears of anticipation. And she said, "You just need to know your next steps." How very full circle that was, to have my child use my words to encourage me. And maybe that's exactly what I want to leave you with today. Whether you're in the thick of it right now, or tethered to the minivan, or whether you're standing at the beginning of this decision, wondering which path is right for your family, you don't have to figure out the rest of your life. You only need to know your next right step. And the good news is you already know your family better than anyone. Sometimes you just need the right conversation to hear what you already know. Here's what I know after 2 decades of homeschooling and 6 years of coaching. Every parent has one singular goal: to raise up their particular child well. You care the most about your child. You see your child most clearly. You are the most invested person in the room, and you always will be. The families who thrive, regardless of which path they choose, are the ones doing it purposefully, because they looked at the child in front of them, asked honest questions, and made a decision that fit their actual family. That is what this is really all about. And if you're a BC family sitting exactly at this crossroads right now, wondering registered or online learning, and you want a real conversation with someone who's been doing this in BC for 2 decades, I open a Friday afternoon every 2 to 3 weeks for a small group of BC families, just 6 to 8 families, for 1 hour, where you can get clear on whether you want to move toward registered homeschooling or online learning. I am keenly aware that another graduated homeschool parent or seasoned homeschool parent can tell you what worked for their family, and gratefully there are many involved and engaged homeschool families all over Facebook and in your community. But I can help you figure out what will work for yours. You don't have to spend hours down a rabbit hole of Facebook threads and government websites to get clarity. The BC Homeschool Clarity Session is $35 Canadian. You'll find a link in the show notes. I look forward to seeing you there. Thanks for joining me today. Remember, every tiny shift you make toward alignment ripples into your kids, your home, and your sense of self. You have the capacity to lead your days with presence, calm, and clarity, not pressure, not the perfectionistic tendencies or the old stories that you hold and were never yours to begin with. Here's your reminder to nurture the nurturer. It's the foundation of a homeschool life that actually works. If this episode resonated, hit subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. And if you know another homeschool mom who might benefit from this conversation, would you share it with her? Until next time, take care of yourself, nurture the nurturer, and lead your homeschool life aligned from the inside out.